Are you tonight?
Oh, just doing well. Took a nap that I didn't mean to when I was rocking my baby to sleep. So kind of trying to wake up right now. But other than that, doing okay. How about you?
I'm good. I'm not taking naps though, so I'm not as
It
good
was
as
not
you
intentional.
are. Well, you know what? When you're, is it your first child or second or?
Yeah, it's child number one. So we're learning the ropes and she's teething real bad right now. So she's not taking her naps during the day. So we have to rock her to sleep. But we've got this wonderful rocker right by her crib and apparently it works too well. So that's what happened today.
Right. Well, does she sleep and not, or do you guys sleep and not her when you're rocking her?
No, so if we rock her, she'll fall asleep, but the second that we pick her up, and she's like 13 pounds, so it's nothing, but the second we pick her up and try to make the 2.5 foot move from the rocking chair into the crib, she'll wake up, and then you have to start the entire process all over again.
Very sensitive little ones. I don't miss that at all. I've got a different problem, and it's teenagers. My youngest just turned 15 yesterday, so and it's a she. So, and she's just like me.
So not opinionated whatsoever.
Not opinionated whatsoever, not into, Jap stuff, right? Jewish American princess, not at all spoiled. So anyway, we have a lot to talk about for the new year. I mean, mainly, I think the news that's come and dominated for the last 24 hours is, and there's a lot to this, is this meeting, this guy, Bibi, comes in, and I think he gives a lot of heartburn, if you will, to some of the anti-Israel folks who we're predominantly focused on lately on the right. So what did you make of this meeting? I mean, it's multi, right? I mean, it's, Trump is like, Bibi, you're the greatest guy ever. Bibi's like, you're the greatest friend. No, you are. No, you are. And then, Trump gets an award. And, obviously the friendship is strong. It's been longstanding, even predated, the presidency. So what did you look at it? I mean, between the backdrop of that and what's happening in Iran simultaneously, like the Abraham Accords as well, we have a lot just off of this subject. So you begin. I think you're muted.
I hit the mic when I was moving it. I had to adjust my.
It's muted again.
I tapped.
When you have a fancy mic, so many things can go wrong, you guys. I'm telling, that's why I don't have one. I have my computer. It's my computer and me, and that is it. And it's less to screw up.
Well, my studio is the nursery, so nighttime ones I have to reset. So now we're good. I've got the green on, right? Everybody can hear me. Sorry. So let me start that again. It seems like all of these meetings are perfectly timed. So whenever Bibi comes to the United States, or on the off chance that Donald Trump goes to Israel, it seems like there's something big happening. Right now, the biggest thing that's happening in the world over the last 48 to 72 hours is the fact that there seems to be an uprising in Iran. Now, if you've heard about an uprising in Iran, it's because it seems like it's very cyclical. They always start in Tehran, the capital of Iran, and then they kind of sputter out. They don't really reach the other cities. This seems to have a different feeling to it, though. And the reason for that is because of Operation Rising Lion, which was the 12-day war that Israel had with Iran. And the only way that Israel was able to finish off that 12-day war was because of the United States. And Sloan, if you remember all the way back then, how many different pundits like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, all of the guys who make their living.
So let's talk about Steve Bannon.
Yes.
And then we can talk about the late Charlie Kirk, because at the time he came out, this was unique. He came out with Bannon. In fact, I think Bannon influenced him a lot, quite a bit. And Tucker did as well, and said, if you go to war, you're going to lose the youth vote. Bannon had been saying a hell of a lot worse. In fact, he's a malcontent. So what do we expect? Tucker as well. But Charlie, unlike the others, reversed course when appropriate, and said, look, this looks like we have for the first time a clear way for a surgical strike, and kind of change the messaging. He was the only one that I saw do that.
Yes. And the good thing about Charlie Kirk was he wasn't somebody who was completely bought into his own ideology. If you gave him new information, he would actually change. Now, you and I, we were very critical of Charlie Kirk
Yes.
before Charlie Kirk's assassination. And the reason that I had a problem with him was because he was getting real into that Christian nationalism, which is antithetical to the United States of America. But when it came to Charlie Kirk's Zionism, or when it came to Charlie Kirk understanding that you get to peace through strength, which is the Donald Trump doctrine, both in Donald Trump's first term as well as his second term. He understood that on a visceral level, which is why he was somebody who was actually a fan of peace through strength and striking the mullahs and striking the Ayatollah and taking all of the power from Iran out. And that's why we have more peace now, at least relatively, in the Middle East.
Well, he's a unique figure in that he was always critical of Obama's leading from behind ridiculous foreign policy, right? So there's that. Yeah, it was a terrible policy. And then he was critical of the war as well. And so I think that's the nuance that a lot of people don't understand. And the Johnny-come-latelys to politics, I mean, Tucker Carlson and Bannon wouldn't qualify. I think a Megyn Kelly would. She's a dum-dum, and others. But they don't understand the nuance in that. So leading from behind is actually not leading at all, right? It's
That's not leading. Yeah, by definition.
Right. I mean, he had some drone strikes, etc., that were unconstitutional. So that was a problem. But also, going into and doing nation building, which we don't want to do, which we're going to be doing in Gaza. But anyway, Trump's foreign policy, he has no foreign policy. It's all over the map, etc. But it's not leading from behind, right? And it's not fully nation building at this point. It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
These podcasters get it wrong because they're into extremes, right? And the only extreme they're going to is, for whatever reason, no new war, only with Israel. Right? We can, Venezuela's cool, Nigeria's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? I mean, Trump, you have to really be smart to cover foreign policy or prognosticate on what he's going to do, because it's not the feels, right? I mean, there's no, I mean, with him it is, but there's no clear thing. In other words, there's no black and white. I mean, he'll strike, in Syria, for instance.
Yeah, Trump has that weird, you use the word feels. That's really how Trump kind of does foreign policy. He goes by what feels right. And the reason that he's actually so good about it is because he kind of cut his teeth, he cut his teeth in the New York City real estate market, which might as well be the Middle East when it comes to warfare, really. And so for him, he understands the power of strength. And when you're in a position that you can bully other people, you actually do that. And the more you bully people in foreign policy in an area like the Middle East, where strength is the only thing that's respected, that's actually the best thing you can do.
They call your bluff, man, though. When they call your bluff, rockets have to rain down.
Exactly. And that's the difference with Trump, is that Trump will actually send a couple of mops your way and destroy your entire nuclear facility, which is eons underground. Trump is the king of, please call my bluff because I've got the greatest military in the world, full of the greatest military people in the world. The IDF is fantastic. You'll never hear me say many bad words about them. But when it comes to the United States military, it's unparalleled. And that's why Trump says, please call my bluff. I want you to call my bluff because I'm just going to spend about 6 hours, send a female pilot over there, over Iran, just to rub it in your face and drop some mass ordnance bombs on you guys and end whatever power you had. And that's why you actually see right now a little bit of revolution in the streets of Tehran.
Well, I thought it was interesting. He said, I'm not going to waste the fuel this time.
Yeah, Trump says a lot of things. Ben Shapiro loves saying that. It's because it's true. He always says Trump, and I believe he throws a swear in there, and I'm from a farm town, so it's kind of my thing, but I'll leave that out for right now. But Trump, he said a lot of, you know what, that would be his epitaph. So when Trump says a thing, I sometimes listen to what I think he means, and you kind of have to read the tea leaves. So when he says, I don't want to spend the gas, okay. But when push comes to shove.
It means he's going to let Israel take care of it.
Exactly, as he should, by the way. He said the United States has done exactly what's needed. Israel didn't have these types of bombs. It didn't have these types of planes. So we had to help out in order to end this war and to do so relatively bloodlessly. So now, Israel, it's up to you. You're the one that wanted to open this bag. So it's incumbent upon you to reach your hand into that bag of cats and deal with it the way that you can. And that's exactly, by the way, what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wants.
So, jumping around here, when we look at this document came out about a month and a half ago, and it is the national security document that came out and kind of put forth a Marshall Plan, if you will, but a forward-looking document the United States has when looking at foreign terror threats, when looking at allies, etc., without defining Islam as a threat to the interior, to the homeland. What the document did say is essentially, and I'm paraphrasing and condensing it down, is we, the United States, are going to decouple from Europe. That was wild. Part of that, obviously, is that the UK is impotent at best. And so what I find very interesting is that you do have these, and they're just dumbasses. You may not use that word. I do, because there's no other nomenclature or colloquialism to use actually when describing Steve Bannon et al., right? They'll say that the UK even is an equal ally, and they'll also say that Russia is a better ally than Israel. And it's just so weird that people, Jake, consider them MAGA when we have a clear indication, obviously, who the better ally is, and anybody knows that. But why are they getting away with going counter to what Trump's saying? In other words, we're agreeing Trump's arbitrary, right, in his foreign policy. But we actually have doctrine now, right? We have something to look at, 28 pages of forward-looking policy. These podcasters disagree with both of them. So it seems like they're playing for the Democrats.
Yeah. Well, that's what the podcasters do. I think what you see a lot of is MAGA isn't conservatism. It also isn't that peace through strength doctrine that Trump actually executes so well. What the podcasters are is, honestly, they're more to the left than anything else. They're populists. The thing that I always like to say is somebody like JD Vance, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but somebody like JD Vance and Tucker Carlson, they're more Bernie Sanders than they are Ben Shapiro. So everybody's expecting all of these people in MAGA, right? MAGA didn't exist 10 years ago. It did not literally exist in 2015. Now, granted, 2 days from now, it's 2016, if we go back 10 years, but it didn't exist 10 years ago. So people are conflating the fact that MAGA is currently right-wing with a bunch of people who in no way, shape, or form are really right-wingers. Like JD Vance came out and said, you know what? Some of my favorite people are the Bernie Sanders. They are the Alexander.
Don't take our word for it. You know, we're going to be quoting verbatim that. But I will say this too. When you look at MAGA, and we're going, you know, from the escalator point down, you know, it would be a decade. What ended up shaping Trump and this doctrine, and a lot of people don't realize and give credit for this. I think when Trump was coming in, I had trepidations because I didn't think he'd be a conservative. But he's the kind of guy that, if you piss him off, like a tremendous amount of Democrats pissed him off with certain things, I think he went in his first term to a right-wing position because he was giving the middle finger to the left. So some of that has been shaped by the left, right? And then in this new administration, some of the MAGA doctrine, which we're not even a year in yet, I think the 21st of January will be a year in. I think some of that is shaped by the betrayal that he had in the first administration, which is kind of interesting, right? And so, in other words, there's not a lot of dogma, as you intimated, going into this MAGA thing, but it's a malleable force that is altered.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand about Trump, and it's really weird to me that they don't get this. He's exceedingly adversarial, but he's also somebody who, if you talk nice to him and you play the game,
easy to forgive.
Yeah. Right, exactly. That's why he can one day say, and we can swear on the show, so wonderful. He can say, I don't know what the fuck Bibi is doing over there in the Middle East. And then the next week, give him all of the plaudits that you could possibly give to somebody. It's because Trump is one of those guys who wants to see if you're in his corner. And then if he's not sure, well, now you're about to make an enemy of him, so you best make the right move. And Bibi, for better and for worse, because I'm not somebody that usually compliments other people by saying you're a politician, but Benjamin Netanyahu is the best politician of the 21st century. And for him, he knows what he's doing vis-a-vis Trump. And the other thing is also true. Trump knows really what he's doing vis-a-vis Bibi. And so they have this kind of push and shove relationship. And then everybody else has to be reactionary to what the two of them are doing.
Right. And that's why if you're smart, you won't be prognosticated. You're going to have some historical knowledge of Trump, Middle East affairs, etc., before you prognosticate. You're not going to do it ahead of time. If you don't, this is not an area that's for you. Right. And so, I mean, I know that even, foreign policy gurus who lead think tanks have gotten it wrong many times. You know who gets it right very often is Lee Smith. If you follow Lee Smith, I don't know where he writes. I mean, he's in New York Post frequently. I don't know if he's a part of a think tank, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up.
But he writes for Tablet. Actually, he's a writer for Tablet. So if you ever want to have a good prognosticator, I think Lee is the man to do that, and he gets it right. But so let's talk about how the Abraham Accords may be shaped by this meeting, because you're right, politics means something. It has a meeting. I mean, Bibi's been down there since Sunday. I know for a fact he's not leaving until Friday. So
yeah, so it's all about Saudi Arabia, honestly, because the next step of the Abraham Accords is Saudi Arabia going to actually open up relationships to the rest of the world when it comes to Israel. Because right now they're kind of playing this game of patty cake where they don't want to alienate the other Arab states in the Middle East. But really, that's the next step of the Abraham Accords. And if you remember all the way back to 2020, if Donald Trump won in 2020, that was going to be the next step. That was weeks away from everybody that I actually listened to, because they get these things more right than wrong. So like Professor Max Abrams at Northeastern University, he was one of the people like, this is what's about to happen if Donald Trump wins in 2020. But what ended up happening is, of course, Biden won in 2020 with all of the COVID votes and all of the mail-in votes. And we now know a lot of votes that shouldn't have counted in Georgia, which is a really, really big thing that we've just swept under the rug. But let's move beyond that for the purpose of this specific conversation. That was the next step. It was going to be normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. And then once Saudi Arabia comes into the fold, now the entire Middle East is opened up. Yemen is isolated. Iran is isolated. But because of Operation Rising Lion and because of Israel winning on 7 different fronts, now it's actually a more open field. But because it's now a more open field, Saudi Arabia is not quite ready to jump in, and you might see a pivot, but I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. I think that's what we're seeing right now, is that's what's getting ironed out in those meetings between Trump and Bibi.
Okay. I mean, and we could go into Qatar, but we've kind of, we've beaten the dead horse. I mean, we're going to continue to beat that horse, but and because it's this whole whitewashing of Islam in this country, we've got people from the highest levels. Well, first of all, we've got JD Vance. We'll get into him, who says there's no anti-Semitism, there's nothing to see here, etc. Ridiculous. And then you've got Trump and his, golfing buddies who are running the Middle East policy, who are making money allegedly from Qatar, etc. And you've got Tucker Carlson, who's a horse's ass, who is with Don Jr., who can barely keep his eyes open on several podcasts that I've seen lately. I don't know what's going on there, but
no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it'd probably be a sedative, just if I were to guess, but I'm not a specialist. But so in other words, watchers of this stuff, it makes us uneasy because we cannot say unequivocally that okay, so all that's going on. By the same token, we have a commitment to crack down on Islamic terrorism, to ship out Islamists, and to ban countries. I want to be very specific. This is not a Muslim ban. You can call it whatever you want, but specifically, if a country cannot vet, if we have nothing to stand on to vet people, we shouldn't be letting them in, right? So, all this is to say is that we're getting mixed signals.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think that As much as I hate it, it's actually a really productive thing because it makes everybody have to pay attention. Because if you know exactly what's going on, now granted, it would be different if we're talking about tariffs and the not real estate market, but if we're talking about the stock market and
Yeah.
tariffs and all that, that works on predictability. When it comes to something like the Middle East, the fact that Trump is really a wild card plays in his favor. Now, and I'm not somebody who actually takes like Pepto-Bismol, but does it give me like acid reflux and stomach issues? Yeah, it is, because you never know.
Homeland.
Yeah.
And so what I'm talking about is a bit more of domestic policy. How
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean, but it's, I mean, the line is always blurred for those who are very, actually, for smart people, the line is very blurred. For dumbasses, it's, oh no, America first, and there's a border, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. But it's a very complex thing, particularly. This was what kills me. These people are America first, and we're going to focus on this country, and blah, blah, blah. And in full recognition that we've let in 10 million illegals under Joe Biden, meaning that we've let in international risks, et cetera. And guess what? They've got a cell phone and they are calling people and doing business outside of the country. So in other words, we have to handle the international threat because unfortunately is in the interior of the United States. And that's why people that are isolationist and saying, oh, they'll recognize that we've had a huge influx of Islamists.
Yeah, and it's all connected. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. I think many are starting to pick up on it because of the issue with the fraud in Minnesota with the Somalis, and they're sending that money. Like the United States taxpayer, me, you, everybody that's listening to this right now, more than likely, is helping to pay for terrorism in Somalia. That's literally what's happening. That's not hyperbole.
But
We are
five
giving
times over, because we're already giving that. We were giving US aid there. I don't believe we're doing that anymore. I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
Well, shit, we're giving money to the Taliban, for God's sakes, but don't even get
Right.
me started. So in other words, we're giving foreign aid.
Mhm.
And then we're taking, I mean, in Minnesota, the poorest of the poor,
Mhm.
you've got Americans.
Yeah. And instead of helping Americans out, right, that's what we're doing. We're not just helping out the Somalians in America who may not be here legally. We're also helping out the literal terrorists who genocide people in Somalia itself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The ones we're going to war with because they're genociding Christians. Oh, by the way, I'm not noticing these Israel firsters, who is what they are. They're not really raising a sound about the massive fraud. That's an America first issue. They're not raising a fuss about the Nigerian genocide of Christians, nor the Syrian one, probably because the victims are Black, to be honest with you. And that's a Christian issue. So, we're not going to point and say, oh, look at them, these are idiots. We've got a very serious problem in that politically we may be losing elections, and that means all the things we've talked about, stopping the fraud, keeping the borders closed, etc. That is in severe jeopardy in the midterms.
Yeah, all the gains that we made are going to be reversed if we lose. And right now, it looks like the GOP is trying everything that it can to lose the midterms, and then beyond the midterms to lose the 2028. Say what you will about Erica Kirk, good or bad. She absolutely shouldn't have tried to coronate JD Vance at America Fest at the last TPUSA event. That was one of the most despicable things and one of the most anti-American things. I get it that Charlie Kirk was terrific friends with JD Vance. But guess what? That's not how we do things in the United States of America.
Oh, let's talk. Yeah. And
please. Yeah.
JD,
you got to stop me before I get going. So, yeah.
No, and I'm being, it was JD Vance. How good of a friend was he to Charlie Kirk, given that you're sitting there fluffing Tucker Carlson? Who has said very, very derogatory things about Christians, who has said, basically, we need to love and honor Islam, and why are you guys being so mean? And has said, obviously, horrible things about Israel, and has interviewed and promoted his arch rival, Nick Fuentes. So if I were JD Vance, I mean, people keep talking about, well, this is what Charlie wanted. I guess what he didn't want is the aforementioned things that are happening and being condoned by JD Vance. So how great of a friend was JD Vance? How good of a husband is JD Vance if he's letting, this anti-Indian hate towards his wife?
I have no idea. Put it this way, I don't have friends like that. So I can't answer that. Honestly, I really, really can't. And there's something about this modern state of podcastistan where everybody has to be friends with one another. I don't care about your relationships. I care whether or not, especially if you're a politician, but also if you're a pundit.
Correct.
Right. I care whether or not you're doing good for the country. JD Vance hasn't done anything, and it makes me crazy. And I don't need help with that, but it makes me crazy for other people to point out, hey, JD Vance, he's done X, Y, and Z. I'm like, he's done nothing.
Wait,
He was middle of the pack.
I'd like to hear XYZ. What?
That's all I'm asking for. That's all you're asking for. You're asking for explanations to very obvious questions, and you, Sloan, pardon the expression, have the balls to ask the questions, and then the VP jumps down your throat as opposed to giving an answer to a question that literally millions of Americans have, which is to say, how much influence does this Groyper light, and if you're Buckley Carlson the elder, i.e. Tucker Carlson's brother, but how much does this Groyperism, how much does this influence have on you? Because from my perspective, and I believe from yours as well, it seems to have a ton of influence. And that is exactly what Charlie Kirk was trying to excise from the grand old party.
Well, I think JD Vance, the vice president, answered my question in selecting me to respond to. He chastised me, called me a scumbag for raising the question about Buckley Carlson. I mean, look, when you're on the federal payroll and you're the assistant of the man that's one heartbeat away from taking over our country, these questions of course need to be asked. And everybody understands that. This is a 90-10 issue, by the way. What happened at the end of the day is 90% of people were going, what in the actual F is going on? And a lot of people didn't even realize Buckley Carlson worked for the president. So, you know, and oh, by the way, at TPUSA, he answered the question. He answered the question conclusively. Tucker's my friend. And moreover, he said, I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, Tucker is as much a part of this MAGA movement, this conservative movement as anyone. And I don't think anyone serious doubts his bona fides to be in this movement. So he, the vice president, put an anti-Israel, anti-American piece of shit into the party. He did it. He'll pay for it.
Yep. And
so that's what TPUSA has made it clear. Now, look, I cannot imagine losing my husband. No. I cannot imagine what this woman is going through. Everything I've seen of her, you know, she is really just amazingly strong.
Yes.
But she made herself an enemy of half or more of the Republican Party. Like it or not, this is politics. And when you throw your hat in the ring and say that we're going to fight for someone that is demonstrably unpopular, and he is with evangelicals.
The largest voting bloc of the GOP. Let's just put that out there. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and we're asking ourselves, and we have been, look, who is JD Vance? He was the only Republican that called our president Hitler as we were trying to get him elected. So we do know that. His biggest accomplishment was voting on a huge bill on credit cards with Elizabeth Warren. His heroes, he's had the opportunity to define heroes twice, I believe in 2016 in an interview, as well as a couple of months ago. He named 3 Democrats. He named this recent round, Mondani, Ro Khanna, and I believe
Warren. Was it still Warren, or is that the previous one?
Sanders, it might have, 3 anti-Israel people, and then before it was
anti-American people.
Completely. And so the guys volunteered that information. I mean, this is, in my mind, the Manchurian candidate. By the way, he's playing funny business with words, etc. You know, I'm just as worried. I'm just as pissed off. Or these people can eat shit. It was from Jen Psaki, I could think, who made a comment about, wow, JD Vance's wife doesn't look happy, which, you know, and whitewashing him with Nick Fuentes and saying whether it's her who made a passing comment to a guy that has called my children horrible names and said that he's going to vote for Gavin Newsom because he's better looking. I put them on equal footing and they can both eat shit. Yeah.
It's unbecoming of a man. I don't think that there's anything that's unbecoming of a politician, because I think to be a politician is unbecoming. But come on. He's a Marine. He's a husband. He's a father. React the way that a man would. Instead, he's going for the votes. And what's most disgusting to
From
me,
who? People that don't vote or donate?
exactly. They don't have money. Groypers don't have money. They don't vote. And more than anything else, they don't like the United States of America. They don't believe in the founding philosophy. But JD Vance is trying to curry their favor. And I have no idea why. It doesn't make any political sense. And if you look at how Trump won in 2024, it wasn't because of the white vote, as everybody's now pronouncing that word. It was because of the independents. It was because of the blacks. And it was because of the Hispanics. Guess who the Groypers aren't? All of those. So the GOP is going to lose if they follow what JD Vance and unfortunately Erica Kirk and TPUSA want.
I know. A lot of people say, and I really wish that we could do this. A lot of people say, look, stop talking about Tucker Carlson. Stop talking about Steve Bannon. Stop talking about Megyn Kelly. They'll go away. See, I think this issue is the problem for the following reasons. TPUSA and others, they've anointed themselves over and above the RNC and GOP. They have anointed themselves as the organization that's going to get out the vote and get people elected, okay? So they've anointed themselves that, and they refuse not to platform Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, Megyn Kelly, okay? So that. And then JD Vance, okay, refuses to not only sever himself, he brought Tucker Carlson into the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So in other words, we cannot shut up about it because it's being forced down our throat, kind of like the left did with trans, right?
Yep.
We put it everywhere in the NFL, Oreo cookies, magazines, film. In other words, what the TPUSA faction is doing in Heritage, what they're doing to us is the same thing the left did. They put it all in our face, and then when we say something, they're like, "But you're a neocon."
Mm-hmm. Neocon. It's like, we know what you're saying. We understand your coded messaging. Don't worry. You guys aren't smart enough to do that. Either you think we're too stupid or you guys think that you're much smarter. It's neither of the cases. And I was actually listening to Ami's house, Ami Kozak, who was saying, TPUSA, he was there. He was actually invited as a VP. For those that don't know, that's the guy that does the fantastic impressions of Tucker Carlson and of Candace Owens. And he actually had a really solid observation that I hadn't thought of. TPUSA used to be under Charlie Kirk. It used to be an America First, and I mean that in a good way, an America First organization that was trying
what we voted for.
Exactly. It's turned into this kind of like Christian nationalist organization. And that's what scares me, and I believe you as well, because we're Jewish. Like, no, America is religious freedom, but what you get now.
Yeah, that's never scared me. And by the way, I think Christians would argue this ain't Christianity.
Yeah.
It's this Catholic, it's a war. My friends went and described it. It's a war between Catholic, it begins with an I, integrationalist or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Okay. So there's some war going on between, Christians and Catholics that we probably won't understand. And then the evangelicals that did not go this year, and there were several pastors that I know that did not go this year because they feel like this brand of Christianity you're talking about isn't authentic.
Yeah. Jack Pozo, like that nothing about that was authentic. Nothing about how, and I had a little spat back and forth with Nikki Haley's son, Nayland Haley, who is also a Groyper, and I would love to hear.
Self-hating Jew. We have self-hating Jews, guys. There are self-hating Indians.
Exactly. And it's the weirdest thing to me that this identity politics has now made its way into the right. And when you have people saying Christ is king at Benjamin Netanyahu, it's like, okay, you have lost the thread not only as an American, which I care about most, you have lost the thread as a religious person. And in this country, we don't do crusades. In this country, we don't do jihads. And anybody that wants to do one or the other or both, somehow there are some people that want to do both a crusade and a jihad. No, we don't do that. And what you're going to get is people like me and people like you pushing back on it. And if you have a problem with that, wonderful. The border is open on the exit doors.
That's
you guys can leave.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Jewish, the foundation of law and the foundation of this country, quite frankly, comes from the Torah. So and all Christians recognize that. So this is some sort of perversion, Christians tell me, of Christianity, and they don't like it. And you know who's told me that? The biggest donors and the leaders of the biggest Christian organizations that get out the vote in this country. There are 3 major ones. I've sat at the table with all 3 of them, leaders, who told me this bothers them. JD Vance bothers them. The whole thing they believe is a perversion. So let's go to, first of all, I just want to tell people the structures, okay? So you've got TPUSA is a 501c3. I want to tell you how that works. And it's also a PAC. I believe it's a 527 super PAC. Okay. So
they've got 2. Yeah. They're 2 different things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a 501c3 can take money from Qatar. It can take foreign money. Okay. Mm-hmm. What it's not legally allowed to do. All right. And this is IRS law. So it's not like they're going to get arrested or whatever. What they cannot do is campaign or lobby for any particular candidate. Right.
Correct.
So the PAC. Okay. So their donors can be obscure. They can do that. Well, a PAC at 527 cannot. Obviously, you don't want someone from Iran getting a candidate elected, right? So that's FEC law. It's very strict law. So, you know, when you're talking about, now we're talking about if you donate to TPUSA, they made it very clear everything in their operation is going to go towards getting JD Vance nominated. Mm-hmm. That's good news because it frees up a lot of cash and a lot of capital to go in another direction, right? So that's kind of good. But we need to keep an eye on if there's any intermingling, because I believe the structure on campuses, guys, at TPUSA would be the 501c3s. And these are donors who give the money for, and it becomes public 2 years later.
Yes.
Right? That's the way that you do it on your finances. But they can take money from foreign countries. So if they're promoting, JD Vance or whatever, not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, they're not allowed to. That's something that I'm very confused about because I work in the nonprofit world. As a 501c3, the way that you get around it is you never promote a politician. You never promote a candidate. You promote the policies.
Correct.
Which is great. I actually think it shouldn't exist as it is, but you know what? That's the law as it currently is. But TPUSA came out, not TPUSA for Action, which is the PAC, and they're allowed to do that as a 501c4, the 501c3, the nonprofit organization, which
they're C4, so they don't have it. They don't have I believe they have a PAC.
Yes, that's TPUSA for Action, right?
Right, and that would not be a C4. So a PAC would be, and what it is, guys, money goes directly to speech, and it's what kind of speech, right? If it's political speech, it needs to be open. Who's paying for it?
Yes.
Whether it's for our registration for public lobbying or whether it's a PAC, right? And then if it's for the greater good, which would be in this case, education, it would be, okay. So.
But TPUSA, right. But so TPUSA at AmFest, as it's operating as a 501c3, literally put a candidate out there and said, we're going to do whatever we can. Right. Exactly.
I wonder, okay. That's interesting. But the head, I just wanted to delineate the two for the audience because this is the head of the PAC. So he's allowed to say this. He put this out there. I'm going to say it over and over again in the course of the next 3 years. The neocons no longer have political power. Now, I want to tell you, the neocons, some people believe that is dog whistling for pro-Israel voters. Most people believe that. The neocons, so this guy, by the way, Jay, who was repeatedly said, and by the way, JD Vance, a week before he went after me and called me a scumbag, said, we need to stop picking on each other. We need to join up. Stop going after each other and go after the left. Well, and then came after me. Okay. So this guy has also done that and said, can we start going after the left? So this is less than a year before the midterms. The neocons no longer have power. So it's a Rorschach test. Whoever considers themselves a neocon is going to be pissed. And this is an enemy now, right? Therefore, the powers that be control them are no longer going to use political power. Now, this is when Bibi is in town, right? So, okay. They will try to buy those with influence or hurt those with influence that they cannot control, both directly and indirectly. It's not hard to see when you put your readers on. So what he's saying, first of all, he's gaslighting and dog whistling.
Yeah, he is. And he's like, Tyler is one of the better ones at TPUSA. That's what's really messed up. It's not to say that he's good, but it is to say, compared to the other people at both TPUSA and TPUSA for Action, Tyler is actually one of the better ones. And if this is one of your better ones talking this way, the neoconservatives no longer have power. They're purposely, intentionally.
Yeah,
Dog whistle, straight up dog whistle, and I completely agree. We're the traditional conservatives. That's the thing that bothers me.
Getting people elected, since most of the people they claim are their people have been voting. I mean, we were working
since before they could vote
in 2015. So I don't know who the F he thinks he's talking to. Like, okay, so look, here's how I tried to bring it down. Okay, so this tweet came out today. So neocons, like, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So in other words, in our thing, who's going on? What's going on? I don't think Republicans are raising hell about anything. And then I said, well, Bibi's in town. And
why is he talking about this? Why isn't he pointing all of the eyes at Minnesota? That's what I never understand about these conversations.
Comment. So I want to read through this. Nick Shirley, independent journalist, has done great work. Thankfully, is shutting up either Don Jr. and hundreds of thousands of Republicans supporting the exposure to the extent which Somalia and Islamists with the enemy. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. So, absolutely. So in other words, we have something. And by the way, Tyler Boyer may have pointed to this over the last few days. I don't know. But for him to look, I don't mind if politicians like JD Vance say something, but when you stick your finger in my chest, and you say that anybody who criticizes Tucker Carlson's son or anyone on my staff that's paid by federal tax dollars is a scumbag, so me and anyone. When you attack Jews, which he has done, right?
He's attacked Judaism, not just Jews.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So in other words, it's not passive. It's not something we can ignore, because when we're attacked, we're going to fire back. So Tyler's attacking, some of us. And by the way, I read through his comments.
Neocons.
That's right. I went through the comments, and he is, people were pissed, and he's gaslighting them. So I don't know what game he thinks he's playing, but I have to tell you, there's a lot of us who have formed a team that know a lot of high-powered donors that are going to the donors of TPUSA saying, this guy's putting together a war on really your standard issue. Yeah. So you're going to be lighting your money on fire, donor, because we're going to fire back. Like, what's the goal here?
It's a coronation. That's what the goal is. And I've said this, and I think I've said this for at least half a year at this point. I think many people in TPUSA have wanted JD Vance, and this is before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Absolutely. They wanted JD Vance to be the 2028 GOP nominee. JD Vance is a horrible candidate. We know that because he was a terrible candidate as a senatorial candidate. He was only VP because he was handpicked by Tucker. He has no accomplishments whatsoever, and he's off-putting to all of the people who actually got Trump into office. So what is this? This is them circling the wagons, and they don't know what else to do because they're
enemies. They're going to make enemies. I'm telling you. I'm
not voting for JD Vance. I'm not voting GOP 2028 if JD Vance.
I'm not going to be sorry. I'm not going to be attacked for 3 years. This is, to me, it's a shot across the bow that, and I'm like, game on, bring it. Right.
You can throw a punch and I can throw a fucking counter left.
Yeah.
We can do both.
Right. And so, that's kind of where I am with this. And then, being a savvy politician, here's the thing. JD Vance is defiant. Okay. So I'm going to go back about 7 or 8 weeks when Politico, which is a terrible, terrible rag, came out and published chats from young Republicans, which were, by the way, 35 and 40 years old. Okay. So they published it, and a couple days went by, and many Republicans came out and said, this is abhorrent. We don't like it, etc. A couple of the associated young Republicans shut down. He comes out of the blue right before the Virginia elections. And he goes, I don't give a damn about those chats. What I care about is Jay Johnson in Virginia saying blah, 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 blah. Now, it put two things on the board, Jake.
Mhm.
First of all, for Americans, most hadn't heard of the chats.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is it?
Streisand affected it. Yeah.
Right. Let me, you just highlighted it. Let me look that up. And they're like, oh, you don't have a problem with calling black people watermelon people, porch monkeys, and Jews, and okay, you don't have a problem with that. So he did that, right? And then at this TPUSA thing, what do you think the left is going to do? He is being the guy that got up and said, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore in America.
Yeah. It sounds like a grandmaster speaking. It does. Like, we're so close to this right now. My wife, who isn't as clued into politics as I am, when she reads what JD Vance says, she goes, is this guy okay? And what she means by okay is like, is he, not a bigot? And I don't know how to answer that right now, because he every chance he has to excuse bigotry, he does. It's so weird. And in fact, he ceded the upper hand. You talked about the young Republicans in that Politico story. The real issue that he did was Jay Johnson was not going to win. The one thing that the GOP had in that race was the fact that this guy was literally promoting political violence. And then what did JD Vance do? The vice president of the United States, he said, you know what? The right wing, we're also okay with political violence and the type of rhetoric that gets people shot. It's like, okay, you want to lose. I don't understand what you're doing right now, or you're just that bad of a politician that you don't know what you're doing. Both of those equally bad.
He started shit where there wasn't any.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's happening. Like, I'm not aware of what he does. I think he's a de facto leader for TPUSA. I mean, he's hosting, shows for them, doing this and that, and that's fine. But he's starting fights at the exact wrong time.
Yes.
And it is, and they will pull this stuff down until, I don't care about in municipal races where dog catchers are on the list. I mean, that's what the Democrats do. The Democrats are disingenuous. We all agree with that. I think the vice president would agree with that. And so why do you give him? Why do you make it so hard? Like, he can come in, do a speech, and get out. Political consultants like me have to pick up the aftermath, where the Democrats are going to make Tucker Carlson a household name, Nick Fuentes a household name. They're going to play these hip. He's not helping. He's hurting, and it just seems like he's some frat boy that finally has a little power and is giving the middle finger to people, but it's only hurting us. It's not affecting the left. They're licking their chops, Jake. The consultants and I know them. I'm telling you, I've gotten some really funny messages.
Yeah, it's snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I think it was Trafalgar, although I might be wrong because Trafalgar is usually a right-wing poll. But that poll came out that was AOC versus JD Vance, and AOC was going to be the winner. And it's true. People like me are not going to vote for JD Vance. They think that because the left is so bad that we're not going to ever refuse to vote.
I'm going to tell you, if this country gets to the point where there are two socialist anti-Zionists on the ticket in a face-off, the Overton window has moved so far that we're in deep shit. I do not believe that two anti-Zionists will ever be the choices we're going to have at the top of the ticket in this country. And I think Democrats and Republicans, it's incumbent upon both of us. And I do know some Democrats are working very hard to make sure they're taking out the riffraff. But you know how the riffraff got there? They got there because there were no enemy. Yeah, sure. Yes. Women can have penises. Sure. And if you disagree, we're going to run you out. In fact, if you disagree, you're a scumbag.
Yeah. Right. It was alienating everybody to the lesson that you're saying to the left. Here, it's alienating people to the right. JD Vance, you're a populist. I'm a conservative. I'm to the right of you. So when it comes to people like Matt Walsh, who's saying no enemies to the right, I'm actually to the right of Matt Walsh. And I can say, look, Matt Walsh, you have done tremendous stuff. Your documentary, What is a Woman? One of the best things, because it upended that entire grotesque, dangerous, and heinous.
Talented guy. Yeah.
wonderfully talented. At the same time, talented people can say and do really stupid crap. They can. Not everybody is perfect. That's what the country is all about, is that people aren't perfect. So when somebody makes a mistake, say I made a mistake. But I don't see JD Vance, I don't see Matt Walsh or any of these people ever saying, you know what? I kind of took a misstep right there. That's weird to me. And honestly, it's cultish behavior. And that scares me.
No, this very, it would scare the hell out of me to have JD Vance at the top of the ticket.
Yep.
But you know, if I'm going to give some grace here, and I think I'm going to do that, to have your friend blown away. Okay, there's no guidebook for how to handle that, and I think Walsh was close with Charlie Kirk. I think certainly Tucker Carlson is a malevolent asshole, so leave him out of the equation. But I would say JD Vance, I would say Walsh. You know, there's no cookbook for that. So being defiant and being, you know, and even Tyler Boyer, right, and Andrew Clovet.
Yes,
this has got to be extremely hard, and I'd be pissed off too. I mean, I've lost friends in terror attacks, so I know. But by the way, I took 2 months off because I knew I couldn't continue to do my job, cover terrorism fairly while Hamas killed a friend of mine. Do you know what I mean?
You're a professional. Yes, 100%. You're a professional. I didn't do that. I tried to keep going, and that was a mistake that I made. And I will freely admit that. So I understand. I don't want to cut you off. I just completely understand what you're saying, that if you're a professional and you have the pride to admit, you know what, this is too much for me, then you do that. But we don't see that from them. And that's concerning in of itself.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it is that, but it might be, you know, fuck everybody to the left. They're all demons. Look what they did to my friend. The problem with the way that it's been handled, I don't really remember sometimes the name of the son of a bitch that gunned down Charlie Kirk. I don't think.
Should you? I'm one of those people. Put it in the trash bin of history.
Well, I mean, we need to know the enemy. We still don't understand.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yes.
We need to understand that these young men are being indoctrinated. I mean, they're killing Christian kids at their schools, Catholic children, gunning them down and targeting them and targeting Charlie Kirk. We haven't had robust focus on that. But that threat still looms.
Yes, the Nashville school shooter. Why'd they hide the manifesto for so long? This is weird. Okay, so it's Tyler Robertson, by the way.
Yes.
He's from a MAGA family, right? We need to understand how this is happening. And instead of actually going after the real enemies, and I think that, you said let's give grace. Right. Let's give grace to Matt Walsh. When he says no enemies to the right, that's what he's trying to. Exactly. That's what he's trying to say. Let's concentrate on the people that assassinate Charlie Kirk. And let's figure out how a young guy who is part of a MAGA family becomes an online furry who is dating a transsexual. And I might have the fact that he wasn't the furry, but the transsexual boy, I don't care. Right? How do you get into that? I had to
look up a lot of that, and I have to tell you, it can make a blind man sick.
Oh, no, do not go down that. Sorry for the crazy rabbit hole. Right, we were both going for that. It's like we're gonna get to that rabbit hole line. I need to.
This is some deep shit here. Don't even say that. Okay. Anyway, but so in other words, the same people that are saying no enemies to the right and can't we all just get along? And that would be the leaders of TPUSA and JD Vance every other week. Can't we just get along and go up to the left, etc.? And then they hammer us every other week. So, in other words, you know, being a leader means focus.
Yeah.
And it means tremendous self-discipline. Tremendous self-discipline. I and you, like I have a regular podcast. Things go and I have interviews. I'm, you know, media, etc. And I write. And I do appearances. When shit goes on in my life, tough shit, the show must go on. Like you must stay on message. And so if we are depending on JD Vance to be a leader of the free world with his hand on the nuclear button, and he gets pissed off at me, he just said, let's stop interfighting, and then gets pissed off at little old me a week later. we can tell we don't have control of our emotions, do we, Vice President? And
Right.
I don't want his finger on the nuclear football. Thank you very much.
Right. And that's the worst aspect of Donald Trump and how adversarial he is. It's that if you can actually get under his skin, he's not that thick skinned. He's
Yeah.
really good at counterpunching. He's hilarious when he does. When he's like in the pocket and throwing the 1-2, Trump is
Yeah.
great. But you can wrong foot him. And that's when he's at his worst. And all we've seen from JD Vance is you can wrong foot him all the time. And it's people on the right that can do that, and it's people on the left. So that's why somebody like me, who, yes, owns property and has lived in Florida, loves Ron DeSantis. Everybody else says Marco Rubio. I have no problem with Marco Rubio whatsoever.
Dream team. In fact, wouldn't it be great if it was, because it's probably going to be Gavin Newsom, right? You've got the governor of California and the governor of Florida. We can compare and contrast the way those executives have run the project.
Mm-hmm.
We have, Vance has nothing to stand on. So let's take our emotion out of it. If you're listening, Vance doesn't really have a workbook, right?
No CV.
There you go. And actually, what he has, we don't want any part of.
We don't like it, right?
No me gusta up in here.
Great Spanish. Yeah. I'm like, I know Hebrew. I think I know that line. Yeah.
I know some Southern Hebrew.
But it's that. I look at the bottom line, and a lot of people are missing that. And the reason that we're talking about on the eve of 2026, almost literally on the eve of 2026, the reason that we're talking about Ron DeSantis is because TPUSA is talking about JD Vance as the 2028 GOP nominee.
Yeah.
But what I want is production. I want somebody that I know has done the job. You have a surplus in Florida. Florida literally has a surplus, and you compare it to any other state in the nation.
California is a bankrupt state. See, I love that. I love doing a comparison because you can leave the cult of personalities out of it.
Yep. Yep.
You could say, Florida, here's what it is, blah, blah, blah. And it is run extremely effectively from, education to healthcare.
He beat Disney.
Yeah.
He beat Disney. He somehow is able to, he's not Jewish, so I'm not sure how he does this, but he's able to control the weather to such an extent that when a hurricane hits Florida, Florida is good to go within 24 hours. That's how I want the United States of America run. It's that simple.
And look at the fires. I mean, I would love to have these conversations. Those are the conversations I would love to get into. Those are the battles I would love to get into because it's policy, it's outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're going to be, first of all, I'm not going to defend the indefensible. And I think conservatives, they did that some with Trump.
Yes.
Right. You had evangelicals who were defending, divorce and some other things. And I don't know that they defended it, but he had a thick resume, to your point.
Yeah. They excused it. That's what the evangelicals did. They said, look, this is our guy. And because politics, especially in the United States of America, is not just a team sport, but a binary team sport. In other words, if you're not on my team, then you are on the other team, or you're a non-voter, and we don't care about the non-voters. But because it's a binary team sport, they're like, okay, we'll excuse Trump's let's just say some of his more personal relationships. We'll excuse those. And I get it because it means nothing.
But Trump wasn't attacking the donors and their values and their religion.
Exactly. And it meant nothing for who he was as a politician. It meant nothing for who he was as the executive of the United States of America. It really didn't mean anything. It had no place in the conversation. So somebody like me who thinks, you shouldn't sleep around on your wife, you should be good as a dad, you should do all of these things in your personal life. I don't care. Right. Yeah. I don't care when you're a politician. You can be a horrible human being, legitimately. You can be a horrible human being. But if you're in the executive and you run the country well, sorry, you run the country well, I'll still vote for you. I really, really will. But JD Vance has shown me none of those. In fact, he's shown me the negative of every single aspect, both as somebody that's in the executive and as somebody that doesn't know how to really play the game of politics.
No, not at all. And his foreign policy,
Worst.
Yeah, I mean, the word, it would be a disaster.
Mhm.
And then, first of all, he's attached to Tucker Carlson, and he did that
Yeah.
in a discussion. There's not a plurality of Americans that are going to vote for someone that is tied at the hip with Tucker Carlson. Now, you may say, and you'd be correct in saying this, that, well, Sloan, if you did a poll, maybe 30% of all Americans, the electorate, knows who Tucker Carlson is. But I will tell you this. The Democrats will spend whatever they have to spend to make Tucker Carlson a household name again, and it will not be in a good way. And they have a ton of material to do that with.
Yep.
They have a ton of material to do that with Nick Fuentes. And unfortunately, the vice president has given a ton of material. So this.
How many degrees? Let me ask this question. How many degrees of separation is there from JD Vance to Nick Fuentes?
Well,
it's one. It's Tucker Carlson.
Well, I would say this. If I'm running campaigns, what I would say to JD Vance, why in an interview did you even bring up Nick Fuentes and eating shit or anything? Because what you did was you put that on a you're the one, right, who put these two people on par, and you just screwed up big time. Let's see, we don't have to be Trump's friend as long as he does a good job running the country. Okay, yeah, right.
Hey, beautiful, Iman.
But he doesn't come out and say to a swath of people, he's never said there's no anti-Semitism, and that anyone who says that is just putting up a smokescreen so they don't have to talk about policy of Israel. I can't tell you.
Name the policy. Yeah.
How offensive that is.
It means he doesn't understand the electorate. That's what it means. And even worse, it means he doesn't understand what's happening both in the Middle East, specifically Israel, and also in the United States of America. For somebody to come out as the vice president of the United States and say, you know what, there's not that much anti-Semitism. In fact, I think it's only 4% of the country that might be dabbling in anti-Semitism. It means he has no idea what's going on internationally.
He doesn't care to know. He doesn't care to know. And then he said, but I'm more. And then he said, but I'm more worried about people who aren't going to give my kids jobs. Well, then let's talk about what Vivek said. By the way, he came out in contrast to Vivek. Then why don't we address the other part in the Indian hatred? Because the same people that hate us are not going to give your kids jobs.
Excuse me. It's interesting. I think Vivek isn't authentic. That's my biggest issue with him. However, I think he understands America better than JD Vance does. And so when we're having this weird conversation about what heritage Americans versus what's the other phrase? Ideological, I don't know. But anyways, heritage Americans, the ones who were born here and have been here for multiple generations
or whatever
Right. It doesn't matter that you came out on the Mayflower. If you have
that, but we never heard this, right? When Trump's wife was, Melania is not. Exactly. That would mean that she's not, and so
she's American. She is. She's as American as JD Vance. That's the conversation. And we're not having that. And I like and admire that Vivek is the one that's saying, no, we have to have this conversation because the right wing right now is actually going into this old school European concept that we went away from and founded this country upon.
And then JD Vance basically gave him the finger. That's what happened.
Exactly. And that was the issue. And for JD Vance to come out and say, no, your heritage is what matters. No, it does not. It's your mindset that matters. If you want to work hard, if you want to put in the time and effort in order to produce something that is beneficial to the United States of America, and you believe in religious freedom, and you believe in freedom of expression and freedom of speech, that's what makes you an A+ American. But right now, you're not getting that from the vice president of the United States of America.
Yeah. And we're noticing. So I have to tell you, I knew you were the perfect person to bring on here for these discussions. I have a political podcast. I've been doing it for a year and a half in North Carolina. And actually, we have a huge audience for that. And we talk about just North Carolina politics, but I'm trying to get more conversation going with, thinkers, frankly, Jews, thinkers who, because, and it is because my mainstream political consumers are like, gosh, I don't understand this.
Right.
And I'd like to hear it from your point of view. And in North Carolina, I'm actually the only Jew that a lot of Republicans know. Right. And so I'm like, don't take it from me. Let's have these conversations. Because they really don't understand. There's a lot to understand. It's a lot
different perspectives. It's America. It's a great big country, but the negative to that is the fact that it's a great big country, and so you haven't met all of the people. I was fortunate enough to be a play-by-play broadcaster, so I've lived in Wilson, North Carolina. Do you know Wilson?
Yes,
there we go. Right, largest tobacco auction in the entire United States of America. Lived and worked there for about 4 to 5 months. So I've been there. I've lived in 14 different states. I understand why so many people have issues trying to figure out why somebody in Raleigh or Gaston, North Carolina doesn't. See, I know what I'm talking about. Has no idea what's going on in New York City. I get that. But you, Sloan, you're doing a beautiful and tremendous God-given job. The fact that you're trying to get people to understand the differences and to try to come to a compromise with those differences. So I appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you're not following Jake, you have to follow him. He does these amazing just breakdowns. They're like, a 1.5-minute clips, right? Or sometimes 2 minutes, where you're taking complex issues, breaking them down in bite-sized pieces, which is that's really the most feasible way for adults to learn right now, right? Because it's just, we've got so much going on. But, and you've always been a very good friend to me, especially,
you deserve it
during some hard times. So well, this is the first of many. We're going to be breaking these down as we get closer to the election, etc. But thank you again, and have an amazing New Year's Eve, which I know you're not going to be doing a damn thing because you just had a baby.
I'm hosting bar trivia, which I do every Wednesday at Pizzeria Uno. So I'm hosting bar trivia tomorrow night, then coming home, and there is no chance at all that my wife nor my baby are going to make it to New Year's. But thank you, Sloan. Appreciate it, and Happy New Year's, y'all.
Happy New Year's. Stay safe. Bye.